She stood in the middle of the empty hallway, mop in hand, but her heart raced like she was on the edge of a cliff. Her colleagues whispered behind her, mocking her every move. But what happened next shocked everyone to the core. She disappeared, and when she returned, she was no longer just the cleaner, but a woman transformed. What happened next will leave even the hardest cynics speechless. But let's start from the beginning.
It was yet another monotonous morning at the downtown Grand Hotel, a place where luxury was served with a side of cruelty. Jasmine, a quiet and diligent black woman in her early 30s, moved steadily through the hallways, sweeping with practiced precision. Her movements were graceful, a quiet rhythm of routine, but her presence went largely unnoticed, by the guests at least. They passed through the lavish lobby, heads held high, oblivious to the woman who kept it all spotless. The silence of the grand space contrasted with the invisible weight Jasmine carried with every step. For the past 2 years, she had been the hotel's janitor, a title she bore with a sense of pride, even if it was not recognized by those around her. The staff, mostly young, white, and entitled, treated her as invisible. Behind her back, they had given her names that stung. The help, the cleaner, the maid. They mocked her appearance, her accent, her every move. To them, Jasmine was nothing more than a shadow, a worker whose existence barely made a ripple in the world of luxury they occupied. But that morning, something broke. Jasmine stood in the restroom on the second floor, carefully cleaning the sinks, her mind focused on the task at hand, when she heard the unmistakable click of high heels echoing down the hallway. The door swung open, and there stood Karen, the head of housekeeping, her smile sharp and malicious, eyes glinting with disdain. "You know, Jasmine." Karen's voice was smooth, almost sweet, but dripping with venom. "This job must be your whole life. You'll never get out of this place, will you? No one here cares about people like you." The words hung in the air, cutting through the stale silence like a knife. Jasmine's hands froze mid-motion, but her face remained unreadable. She wanted to say something, to fight back, but all that came was a deep, suffocating silence. She nodded silently, the sting of Karen's words settling deep within her chest. In that moment, Jasmine realized something. This place, these people, they would never see her for who she truly was. But she would see herself, and that was enough for now. The following day, Jasmine's resolve was tested again, but this time in a more personal, cutting way. She had just finished mopping the floors when she overheard Karen, with a smug smile, boasting to the staff in the break room. The words cut through the air like glass as Karen casually mentioned her new promotion to the director's assistant, her voice filled with pride. "I've worked so hard for this," Karen was saying, almost too loudly. "No one else deserves it more than me." The staff chuckled, their laughter rippling through the room like a wave. It was the kind of laugh that made Jasmine's stomach churn with resentment. It wasn't just that Karen was promoted, it was the way they all celebrated her, as if her achievement somehow validated their disdain for Jasmine. Jasmine stood frozen in the hallway, a mop still in her hands, her knuckles whitening from the grip. The laughter echoed in her mind, drowning out the sounds of the hotel. It wasn't just the promotion that stung. It was the brutal reminder of the chasm between her life and Karen's. Jasmine had worked harder than anyone, put in long hours, scrubbing floors and wiping down surfaces, only to be unseen, her efforts reduced to mere background noise. She was invisible, while Karen's promotion was celebrated, her name spoken with reverence. Anger flared in Jasmine's chest, a fire that had been smoldering quietly for months now, threatening to burn through her carefully maintained composure. The stark contrast between their lives was suffocating. Karen's new position meant power, privilege, and a future that stretched out with promise. Jasmine had been stuck at the bottom, overlooked and belittled, with no end in sight. But Jasmine had been patient. Her mind had been working, plotting. And now, the time had come. The next morning, as the clock ticked closer to her shift, the rest of the staff began to notice that Jasmine wasn't there. It was unusual, but not immediately alarming. They assumed she was just running late, maybe taking a longer than usual break. She often worked late, doing the tedious tasks no one else wanted to do. But as the hours passed, whispers began to stir. By noon, the uncertainty shifted into something else. Jasmine's absence wasn't just a delay, it was becoming something more, something everyone would soon take notice of. The rumor spread quickly through the hotel, a whispered murmur at first, but then it ignited like wildfire. Jasmine, who had been nothing more than a fixture in the background for so long, was suddenly the center of attention. "Did you hear?" someone said, voice hushed with disbelief. "Jasmine's at the director's new office." "Doing what?" The gossip spread faster than anyone could have predicted, each new whisper adding another layer to the tale. By midday, the truth emerged. Jasmine wasn't simply cleaning the office, she was taking it over. At first, the news seemed impossible. Jasmine, the quiet, hard-working woman who had spent years scrubbing floors and being ignored by everyone, was now standing in a position that no one could have foreseen. She was no longer a part of the hotel's invisible workforce. She had a new purpose, one that no one could deny. But the question on everyone's mind was simple. How? As the staff muttered and speculated, the full story began to take shape. David Harrison, the hotel's newly appointed director, had been watching Jasmine for months. While others had written her off as just another member of the support staff, Harrison had seen something different. Her quiet efficiency, her ability to handle stress without flinching, and her unwavering work ethic had caught his attention. He saw potential in her that no one else had bothered to notice. And so, without fanfare, without anyone being the wiser, Harrison had personally requested Jasmine to join his office as his executive assistant. To the hotel's upper management, this was a shock. They were stunned to learn that this woman, who had been marginalized by her colleagues and treated as invisible, had been handpicked for one of the most coveted positions in the hotel. No one could have predicted it. Jasmine, the woman everyone had overlooked, was now at the top of the food chain, and her rise had only just begun. As the whispers grew louder, there was no denying it. Things were changing, and Jasmine was no longer just a part of the background. The following week, Jasmine walked through the hotel lobby with her head held high, wearing a smart blouse and a blazer. Her transformation was more than physical. It was a shift in power. As she passed by the housekeeping team, including Karen, they fell silent. No more mockery, no more laughter. Jasmine had shown them that success wasn't about privilege. It was about persistence, skill, and knowing when to seize an opportunity. When Karen, with her usual arrogance, approached Jasmine and tried to apologize, Jasmine simply smiled. "I guess you were right," she said. "I never thought I'd get out of here, but now I'm exactly where I belong." The staff watched as Jasmine walked into the director's office, leaving them behind in stunned silence. The system had once belittled her, but now it had to acknowledge her strength, her success, and her undeniable rise to power. The hotel had its first black executive assistant, and the old, unspoken rules had been shattered.